Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Scale series. Did I just roar in your ear? All right, we have our guru, our marriage counsellor, the man in the know, Andy Hallett, live from Reading still?
No, this is actually the BA Lounge at Heathrow.
Oh, very nice. Where are you jetting off to this time?
I'm still Reading, unfortunately. So we're going to be here for a while by the looks of things.
Anybody's listening, we're coming into the end of May. COVID-19, starting to see some green shoots out there. Today, though, we're going to discuss our new business Scale again, and more specifically, how to choose the players on the team.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. So, Andy, you asked myself and Dualta to put together kind of almost this like shopping list of what we kind of want. And it was funny, didn't we? We sat down the other night, we did it separately. So we thought we're not going to do it together, we'll do it separately. And then we'll kind of like, talk about them and tick off the ones that kind of match and merge.
I had 6 points and Charlotte had 26 points.
Yeah, I was probably overly detailed on mine.
Yeah, but the difference is, so you're speaking to good people every day. So there's some amazing talent out there right now. And for those watching or listening to the podcast, I generally get maybe one or two a day of this person's amazing, we should talk to this person. And actually, they are amazing, but potentially they're not amazing for scale. So one of the things I think was really key for us to do was to really work out what those practice leads are going to look like, what criteria is. So when we do get someone who fits that criteria, we can really double down and focus. And actually, we fully understand, those that are not quite right for it as well. So we can be very focused around that. And I think that's important to have that criteria, because when you're talking to recruiters are great. And they're personable. You can picture them working with them. You like to work with them. But actually, having that criteria grounds you. It grounds you to saying, right, okay, what do we need at scale, and what do we need right now? And actually getting you to do the shopping list was quite interesting. So let's talk through the shopping list.
Yeah.
So 3 years experience in agency plus. Talk me through why 3.
Well, because I think it's a good marker that, so if you got through your first year, you're likely to have learned the basics. If you've got through your second year, you've likely got quite good. If you're still in it beyond that and you're still motivated, then it's likely going to be your career.
Yeah.
That would be my main pieces on that. Like, somebody could have slightly less experience depending on what they did beforehand as a career, but mostly that would be my reason. You can pick apart that as you will.
I kind of want to say it because for me, it's they've got over the first hurdle. Probably in a 3-year window, they're going to have dealt with like a bit of a dip at some point, because I want someone who it's not just all been sunshine and rainbows. Like, they've had a little bit of adversity or, a little stumbling along the way, and they've still stuck at it and they've picked themselves back up. And I feel like that as well is there's still someone on that upward trajectory, because for me, I suppose other people might go, oh, I want someone with 20 years tenure or something, or ages and ages. But at the same point, for a startup, they need to be like super motivated, super hungry, and still at that stage where they're kind of like chomping at the bit.
The other bit, and you won't mind me saying this, but that first year or two, it weeds out people who might be more suited to doing internal recruitment. And I always remember a meeting that Charlotte had with David Eyre in a pub. Yeah. And Charlotte was doing all right at Hayes. But
my 70K in 6 months.
Yeah, but it was the hottest market ever. Like, I mean, it'd be impossible not to do it, right?
Yeah.
So she's like, oh no, I want to go over to Walters where you are. And so she speaks to David Eyre, and maybe to do accountancy. And he said, they're both agencies. Nothing's going to be different. Like, you're still going to have targets to hit. You're still going to have this. And Charlotte was like, she was fuming. Yeah. And then she was like, no, he's right.
Well, he actually told me, he was like, you just don't want to be an agency recruiter. And I was like, oh, and I'd obviously had a few wines, got my little high horse and did my little narrative about it. And then literally 2 months later, I took a job as an internal recruiter and was like, yeah, actually, I think I'm better at this.
So that, for 3 years gives you enough time to face adversity, and if there's a bit of consistency on how you've dealt with that, I think that's a good thing.
All right. Scalable company experience versus small lifestyle business has been trained.
Yeah. I was professionally trained at Walters, and I was trained within an inch of my life, and I had a world-class manager, and I learned a ton. And if I had have started my business from scratch without doing that, coming from industry and learned as I went, there's a certain amount of intensity to the way I work I wouldn't have gained otherwise. There's a few other things just in terms of like joining the dots really quickly and knowing how to do that, and just a lot of commercial things that I got in that period of time. And if somebody's not worked for somebody who's really good, then the gap for me to train them remotely is too big right now. And I want somebody, the word like self-starter gets used too often, but that training means that there's enough in place that I can add to things.
Definitely. And I think, again, with Hayes, like, I know people think we bash Hayes a lot. We do actually really like Hayes. But they do have great training. They have like a really, really good training module, various modules, which I went on. And I just think having had that experience, like, you know, to not have had that, that would be hesitant for me.
Hayes were right. You were wrong.
Yeah, pretty much. But you don't often admit.
Exactly the same at S3. You know, it was repeatable. And by the time you get to that 2-3 years, it's instinct. So you're consciously, competently doing these things, and you've actually consciously, competently built in that work ethic. You feel uncomfortable if you're not doing anything.
And I believe that our business isn't at a stage yet, and the market isn't at a stage yet where you can comfortably bring somebody's skill from 20% up to where you need it in a remote basis, because to date, people have learned through osmosis of being beside other people and being guided by other people. And that will change over time, but we're not there yet. And I do not want to be the first to try it.
Fair enough. No point being first, is there?
No.
Right, cool. So brand focused, someone we can build a brand around.
That's really important. I mean, we're media led, media centric, and we want to take that. I mean, that's going to be core to kind of the model when we replicate it out. You know, we want someone that we can build a brand around within Scale that has an interest in that as well. So has an interest in doing videos, speaking at events, potentially doing a podcast, that wants to kind of contribute back to their industry that they're in, and really kind of position themselves as a thought leadership. Because, you know, when we look at moving into very competitive markets, as, you know, whatever the markets will be, but like, you know, you've got to differentiate yourself. Like, I just don't want another person that's going to like flick up a job on, you know, Seek or Read or whatever it is over here. You know, like, you've got to be that person, the go-to person in your market. And I want someone that's interested in being in that.
So I think the key point to that is somebody who's able to build a community. And to be the point of interest within that community is obviously the best way you can be. It's much nicer to have an open conversation about things rather than selling something. And you can get to the sales thing whenever they ask for something. So I think we've got a lot of skills in how to do that from scratch from someone. And as long as they have an interest in that and they've got something about them, whether that is video skills or writing skills or interviewing skills, if there's something there, I can absolutely make it work. Now, a danger of mine is that I might get a bit too magpied to people who have that, and that was almost what we did earlier in the summer. And again, reviewing what we need exactly and how that fits in is key to making the right decisions.
Yeah, so probably we need to finesse that. So rather than it being brand focused, the ability to grow into that, because I don't think there's a lot of recruiters that do what you do. And I think the danger is, you know, if you do focus too much on that, and I think that's the bit you will bring to them. So I think you'll bring your experience, your 5 years experience in remote working. I think you'll bring your 5 years experience in building a brand. When I was starting to look around for things, I wanted to get on your podcast because it's the biggest in the industry. So actually, but that started 5 years ago. That's not an overnight success journey that It's similar with these people. I mean, chances are they are at these sort of rigid firms where actually they're probably not allowed to do that type of thing. No. So actually that's going to be probably, you're going to need to judge capability as opposed to ability.
And just another point on that, like I love big firms and the way that they work with their intensity. I think some of their sales practices at this stage can be a little outdated in terms of the leading questions that they ask. That's very repetitive, and they're taught to do that. From a brand perspective, if somebody can come in and be credible and authentic to themselves, and people can see it at all levels, they'll buy into that quicker than somebody who they think has something up their sleeve the whole time. And when I interview people, I'm really looking to hear that authenticity. They're into it. And I think as soon as I get that, I'm like, right, I can build something around this person from a marketing perspective.
All right, cool. So this is one I'm going to challenge you on. So doesn't need people leadership experience, but has the desire to do so and someone people follow. So if you're getting people to build out these practices, do you want to be the ones training them to be managers?
I knew you would pick up on this one.
Yes, I think so.
Potentially, if it's the right person.
I'll go into a bit more detail. I think it's an area that I would like to learn more and I could get a lot better at. And I think that having people along the journey that I can help would be an interesting avenue to my own development as well.
I mean, for me, the reason why I kept it kind of a little bit loose was I think it can play two ways. So it is, yes, beneficial to have someone that has leadership experience. That said, if they've had leadership experience and then that stepped them back from the tools, for them to kind of reverse it back and come back onto the tools to like rebuild, sometimes that transition can be tricky for people. So I didn't want it to be so focused on having to have leadership experience, because there's equally a lot of like principals or managing consultants that, in effect, they are managing people. They've been given like 2 or 3 juniors, but they've not been given the I'm officially their manager. And I wouldn't then want to kind of restrict myself to think, oh, well, no, because they're not official managers, because they've done a lot of the work when it comes to training, development, encouraging, mentoring. They just need a bit more structure around it.
I also think the proposition's different. I'm not saying like these are your set hours and I need these calls between this point and this point. So there isn't as rigid a structure in place. So if I was to take somebody who was an S3 manager and break the bank for them and put them in place, would they be able to translate that into running a remote team in the culture that we want? Probably not. So I think there's a bit of development in terms of our model and the people that we take in to groom them to being excellent leaders.
So first off, there's a difference between leadership and management. People that are managing those practices could be different from people who are leading those practices. Okay, so the front person and that's maybe where we start to develop that shared service model around delivery, etc. I think the other thing to say though is managing those teams or managing those practices is more difficult remotely than it is. So, take that manager. The reason those managers get repeatable results is they've got a formula, they do it. They were trained, passed down father to son. Actually, if it's not 9 to 5 and you can't actually just get that sort of, that's your base and that's your sort of sure thing, everything is moving around. That's when you're going to need to find some really good managers.
Yeah. But I think it needs to be key as well when we talk about more on the leadership side, that it's someone that, you can see that people will believe in, that people gravitate towards and things like that. If I think of some of the managers that I've had in the past, although I am slightly difficult to manage, there's been ones where I've been like, I've not really bought into my manager at all, but say there's like the senior or whatever, like, and I gravitate towards them because they have a quality about them that's different. So there's that to look at as well. I love how you both laugh at that.
Yeah, really easy to manage.
Do you know, I had a manager, a wonderful manager, Leanne Burgess. I'm sure she won't mind me saying this. Dualta asked her one time, "What's the key to managing Charlotte?" And she said, "It's easy, just don't."
Chaos theory, it's brilliant. Okay, right, last couple then, because
That's repeatable, isn't it?
A few of these merge into one. But talk to me about has faced adversity.
Oh, I love this. I love this, right?
I like it as well.
Yeah. For me, this is key.
Yeah.
And when I got into recruitment, like I'd done loads of different jobs. I'd worked in bars. I'd never been really given a shot. I had gone to uni and I'd done all that, but I never got my professional career on track. And I remember being put through the ringer at Walters, as you said, like being grateful that they'd hired me by the end of it, and thinking that I was going into a room full of absolute rock stars. And I remember I went in and I was like, come on, no. But I had that chip on my shoulder. And at every stage, my manager was like, "Oh, the new person's in. Are you going to let them be the big biller in the room now, or are you going to do it?" Like, and she would always know how to get that trigger on me. And not that we were like good friends or anything, but she definitely knew how to stir me up. And maybe I was better when I was angrier. I don't know what it was, but
passionate.
Yeah.
I build thousands more because Scott Fulton used to pick me up against Pete Hart, and I think Pete normally won in the end because he's the best salesperson I've ever worked with. But he definitely trying to catch him made me an absolute fortune.
So I suppose let me flesh that out. I think that after Walters, I fell on my face in Calgary. Market was against me, a whole lot of things, but essentially I went from a big business to something that was nothing, and I didn't have the skills in place. Now I have them now, but I didn't know that then. But at the time I thought I knew it all, and I hadn't faced adversity because I'd been this fucking rock star at Walters, and I thought like, that's a world-class company.
Yeah.
I'm brilliant. I can do it. And I went there and it was like, boom, done. This is not good.
Yeah.
So one of the things Joe Mullings says to me, you never want to be the company that takes a bath on somebody's first failure. So if they can have that out of the way, if there's something that they've got a chip on their shoulder or they face adversity, like that is the way to do it. So that I think there's a lot of things that you don't know that you don't know when you leave a big firm. And like the phone rings. Yeah. I know you all think you set it up from scratch, but you didn't.
Yeah.
There was somebody there before you.
Yeah.
There's cross-selling happen.
Yeah.
Like when you start something, the phone doesn't ring, it's just you, and you're trying to make things happen. You're trying to build momentum. It's not there.
Yeah.
So not knowing what to face and how to deal with that is really hard to do from a startup. So I like somebody that's been there, had that, and then maybe fallen over a little bit.
But I like someone as well, though, that when they faced adversity or they've got that chip on their shoulder, that it isn't like a blame game chip, if you get what I mean. So it's not like, oh, well, everything else was wrong and what I did was 100% right and blah, blah, blah. Because for me, I'm like, well, that's not learning. Like, you've got to, I don't know, be able to evaluate the situation, have an assessment on it, see maybe what could have been done differently. So for me, it's
said no recruiter ever.
It's those sorts of things though that I look at. It's like, are you self-aware to know, like we both have plenty of flaws, I have tons of them, but I'd like to think that I at least know the majority of them, and it's then kind of, what can you do to work on them sort of thing. So that would be as well, not just the facing adversity, but actually having a little bit of nous about maybe why it happened and having ownership as well.
Yeah, and that's important. I think you're right. Sometimes I was very lucky at S3. When I had my massive failure, which is 2005, I was the most profitable profit center manager 2 years running, and then my whole team left me because they hated me. That was quite a breakdown. So I was.
They all went on to set up successful businesses.
Yeah, so you can claim some success.
Yeah, so I was quite lucky because Gary and Mike put me into a role that didn't involve human contact. So I was. But then actually, what I had was the ability to go back and actually look at where I'd screwed up, and and actually watch the people who are good managers and good leaders. And then, you know, it was like most people don't get that chance. So I was very lucky that I got that opportunity, and actually just found that actually sales management probably wasn't for me. I was much better around the operational side, the commercial side. And then S3 put me through business school at Henley, which, you know, effectively really then helped me develop that as well. So, you know, you can learn from that. And actually, you're right. I still hark back to, I'm never going to be in that position again. I'm never going to get myself into that position. And 100% it was my fault, you know. And if you don't think it's your fault, you'll never learn from it, because this whole cause and effect thing, you can choose. You can choose, and then you're not a victim.
Yeah.
So anyway, that felt quite therapeutic, actually. Thanks, guys. Normally me doing it the other way, but yeah. I really like that quote about don't let someone be their first failure be with you.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, he's dead cert on that. Like,
yeah.
Like, and he doesn't mean just necessarily recruitment. So it could have been something else in life.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to figure out, like when was it and how did you get over it?
Yeah.
And why are you like you are now? And I just thought that was brilliant. So that's something I always try to dig into.
All right, that's cool. All right, look, so I think we've got the basis there, and I think what's been really good is
we have a chip on our shoulder. A chip on our shoulder was one as well, right?
That ties into that.
Does that tie into that?
That's adversity, yeah. So we're cool, but we're starting to get the theme now of what that sort of 7-8 point grading looks like. We'll make it 10 because it's just easier, and the thing that will be really helpful is that, you know, we'll say, you know, is that person a 7 or are they an 8? You know, could they get to a 9 and a 10? But if they start off as a 4, well, actually, luckily you've got a rec-to-rec business where you can place them somewhere else. So, you know, that
it will be different for every company what their grading is.
Yeah, but the other thing is, as we bring these people in, we can go back and look at the scorings as well. And actually then it's like a reverse. So, you know, this practice did well and these were the criteria, and this were the qualities that we got. So you can basically reverse engineer to understand what we can get repeatedly good at. So for me, it's having that Moneyball type assessment of people and being rigid about it.
Yeah.
Because this is now about execution for you. You've got a certain amount of people you can hire, certain amount of chips to place. Which ones are you going to choose?
I'm really excited.
I want them all.
Yeah. See, Dilta's like,
you want them all? Charlotte won't pay for them all. At some point, this is where the science, and we'll have to prove it.
Yeah.
And some point but the point is, if you guys, it shouldn't be a discussion, because if you've got that down, it becomes obvious.
Yeah, that's true. I like this Moneyball type analogy. That's cool.
It's really good.
All right.
I think the other thing at this stage of our business is people who can hit the ground running from day one. So they're coming with an existing presence in a marketplace. They're not switching anything.
Yeah, that's one we didn't put down, actually. I wouldn't look at switchers right now.
Yeah, you don't want to be responsible for someone building. You don't want someone learning on the job. You want someone hitting the ground running.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a problem at the level down, but I think at that practice lead level, your investment is too long otherwise, and you're taking one of those controllables out as well. So is it the person? Is it the market?
Yeah.
Actually, if you then just don't know whether it's the person at that point. So if they proved it was the person, they proved it's the market, then you're reducing that risk of failure.
And interesting on that, you know how some people say, you know, oh, recruitment is recruitment or sales is sales. You can do it in any discipline. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because like if I think of the disciplines that I've recruited in before, there's definitely some, especially on an internal side where I've had to deal with loads of different roles where like my brain just doesn't compute around that. So I think, yes, if you're a good salesperson, you're a good salesperson, but I don't think that always means that you could be a good salesperson in pharma or whatever and then be an excellent salesperson in IT or, you know, whatever it is. Sometimes that doesn't always translate.
I think you can get there, but it's a time thing. And, you know, from a perspective as well, I mean, you're looking at it from your perspective. If you're looking at it from the person you're hiring's perspective, one, they're coming out of a nice, safe environment.
Yeah.
Secondly, they're doing something chances are they haven't done themselves. Actually, if they're just doing what they did before, that's their consistency. That's their rock that they know, that's their go-to that they know they can do. So don't change that.
Yeah. Because, we want them set up for success as quickly as possible on both sides, like that they're happy, we're happy, the confidence has grown and things pick up and go quick.
Shall we touch upon the interview process quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
So I think...
is that normally, you speak to about 100 people, like them all, and we interview them all? Or is this now going to be a process?
How many people have I introduced? Hold on, no. I'm gonna pull them up on this. How many people have I sent you?
All of them have been good.
Yeah. But hang on. How many people does he send me that I then have to go, no?
No, but she does that to everybody anyway. But the ones that, like, I think he interviewed 4? Yeah. And we've 3 at business plan stage, and somebody else is going to do their own thing.
It's a good hit, right?
Yeah.
Good ratio.
Thank you.
I'm rep to rep, definitely.
I wish I could be as good with my clients. So just very quickly on that, how that normally works is I've copied a little bit of what I've learned from some of the companies I've dealt with. GQR in particular have an excellent business plan stage in their process. Mm-hmm. And so first stage, they speak to me, then they speak to Charlotte, then they speak to Andy, then they do a business plan, and then we go to an offer. Yeah. And usually by that stage, over a 2-3 week period, we know if somebody's committed. We know
there's more informal conversations as well.
Yeah, and I think what I've learned from other companies out there, they do a lot of soft touch stuff in the first couple of stages, just to kind of, is this the right person for us? And then the last bit is very much like, the business plan isn't like, okay, we accept this. This is a working business plan.
Yeah.
Which bits do we agree with? Which not? How do we challenge it? How does Andy challenge it? Yeah. Anything to add on that, Andy?
Yeah, look, I think that's important, because the business plan isn't just for the interview stage. That's the working document, and that's what we're basing our investment on. This person is going to come in and do this and this return. For me, there's a difference in a business plan and a pitch deck. Yeah. So what would really scare me is if the numbers are just so Disneyland that it's a bit like, I could do. Do you know what? I'd rather it be honest. So a business plan should be like a spread bet. If you're too far over or you're too far under, you just don't understand. It's not a plan. Being over is a nice problem to have, but not understanding where you get there is just as scary, because you could, that could drop away just as quickly. So for me, that business plan is, stage 0. It is basically the one that we're going to execute. And actually, it's the other thing there where you can challenge and say, actually, I don't think this part of the plan works, and you would need to do this differently.
Yeah.
Potentially for that, for the person coming in and having to execute the plan as the sort of practice lead, that might be a bit uncomfortable, or it just might not work for them. And that's great. Let's find out then, not 2 or 3 months in when these expectations aren't being met on both sides.
Yeah. I think for me as well, the business plan really helps to assess, because I think there's a lot of really good recruiters as well that would be good at just day-to-day execution, desk execution. And when you start sort of making them think longer term, making them think a little bit more strategically, it shows you as well kind of maybe any kind of gaps with that, or on the flip side, whether they're sort of excelling in those thought processes, and just gives you an idea on their overall view of kind of the bigger picture as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you guys have got to bank that back to 7 years' time, house in Santa Monica. So, it all comes back.
All right. Anything else you want to leave us with today, Andy?
No, I think I'm really excited by the people we're speaking to. I'm excited by the fact that actually we've got a really good scoring mechanism. So, we're seeing it, some of the amazing talent that's out there. And I think you're going to have opportunities to grab some great people who have been working out of the office for 3 months and are just dreading going back to the office. I think your proposition was out there 5 years ago. It's probably out there 3 months ago. I think it's so on point now. And I think you're going to get some amazing talent knocking on your door. And let's just be ready to understand, which ones are right for scale.
Yeah.
We were just talking to Alex Elliott from Rise Investments before, and I was talking to him about that specific thing. Like 3 months ago, the people who were available for remote jobs, the test case of it was there's like a handful, and too many of them were lifestyle business orientated. Now there's 100,000 people have tried it.
Yeah.
100,000 recruiters in the UK have been working from home. I did a poll on LinkedIn, and I think I got like 300 to 500 people clicked on it, recruiters, and 63% of them said that they were interested in remote. If it was a choice between remote or an office, they're interested. Now, for me, that all of a sudden it's, wow, this is mainstream.
It's a game changer. I mean, it's remote working has been the norm outside recruitment, or it's been more normal outside recruitment for years. And recruitment's always 10, 20 years behind every other industry. The interesting thing is you look at the big firms, your Twitters and the like, who've just said, we're not going back to the office. We're going to change this. So, there's going to be people out there dreading going back to the office, that have firms really changed the way they manage their people? Probably not.
Let's see.
Well, this is it, because I'm so surprised that there's some still companies there who I thought might embrace this, going, no, can't wait, as soon as it's done.
And that's fine, and you're going to see a massive redistribution in the industry, because some people like that. Some people like the office environment, and that's fine. And you can have that. Some people like complete remote. You can have that. Some people like the mixture. There's going to be firms. So you're going to have this massive redistribution of all these people sat in the wrong seats, basically looking. It'd be good for a rep-to-rep company if you know a decent one.
Yeah. Anyway, right.
On that note,
on that note, now, Andy, where can people find you?
All over LinkedIn and my website when I eventually get it built in the next couple of weeks as well.
Love it.
All right.
Well, thank you as always, Andy, and catch up soon.
No worries, guys. Catch up soon.